YouTubers! Mike Martin's here, Mike Martin's channel, guys. Thanks for joining me. And man, do I have a really cool, several lineup of articles that I want to show you guys. It's a trend, it's a phenomena, and it's called ghosting. And no, we don't have to call the Ghostbusters. It has to do with employers having a tough time tracking down employees. Or employees that get hired, they don't show up to work after the first day or two. What is happening with people needing jobs and people struggling to get by? Are people just giving up and realizing, what are they working for? Is that mentality starting to slip in with the millennials? Well, a lot of these articles are blaming millennials for it. The changes in times, the HR nightmare. Let's look at ghosting phenomena. Alright guys, here it is from today, but it goes back further. So let's start off with this one. Why are employees ghosting employers? And it's from a few days ago here on Yahoo Finance. Many of us have faced silence while waiting to hear back from a prospective employer, only to end up hearing nothing at all. But now, an increasing number of job applicants and workers are vanishing from offices without any reason why. Ghosting, when someone cuts off all communication without explanation, first came to light as a phenomena in the dating world, but it's becoming increasingly common in the workplace too. Earlier this year, Indeed surveyed 900 employees and over 4,000 job seekers and found that 83% of companies that were recruiting said they've been ghosted by candidates. Nearly three-quarters of 69% of them said that this is a recent phenomenon that sprung up in the last 2 years. Today's competitive hiring market and record low unemployment rates have catapulted the employee ghosting to the top of the list, growing concerns for recruits and HR leaders, says Diana Shaven, Vice President of Strategy and People Operations of the HR from Kazoo. Ghosting can occur in any stage of employee life cycle, from interviewing, hiring, and onboarding process, all the way through the offboarding efforts. When an application ghosts a potential employer, it usually signals that the applicant is no longer in the job market, she explains. But when an employee ghosts their current employer, either during an onboard process or within their first 90 days, it typically means the role is a good fit, or they don't feel comfortable speaking up with their managers in the workplace. There's multiple reasons why a candidate would go to the trouble of applying for a job only to ghost the employer. According to the Indeed survey, more than half of respondents said the job wasn't right for them, and 40% ghosted after receiving another offer. Nearly a quarter to 22% said they ghosted an employer because the salary wasn't good enough. However, it's not all down to the employee, but also the recruiter too. More than a quarter of 26% of those who ghosted said that they weren't comfortable telling the employer they didn't want to take the job. Some said they felt they were lied to, misled, or treated rudely. There's also a sense of input when it comes to ghosting. 2. There's little an employer can do if they are ghosted by a potential employee, and 94% of job seekers experience little to no negative consequences from doing it. So let's move on here. Oops, right there. And let's move on here. 1 in 5 workers accepted a job offer and ghosted on their first day. Here's why. So it's happening everywhere. Ghosting is no longer a phenomenon exclusive to the dating world. These days, it's officially moved to the top, beyond apps, straight to the office, and thanks to a tight labor market. So it goes into the same thing we just read. And let's move on. Vanishing act. Ghosting moves from the dating world to the job market. It's happening also in Canada, not just the United States. In this hot labor market, some workers aren't showing up for interviews or even their first day at the job. So that's what's happening. Canada's hot job market is proving a challenge for employees and recruiters alike, as finding staff has become an increasingly difficult task in some sectors. But in some jobs, people can't even afford to. It's like they're working, but depending on what your wages are, or like how it said 26 or 29% of people just said the salary wasn't good enough. They're just working for the sake of working. They're not even getting by or moving ahead in life. So a lot of people get, I don't know, they lose their soul. They lose their drive. They lose their, you know what I'm saying? Let's go with this example here. James employs 10 people to make bars, cookies, and muffins. Muffins free of the most common food allergens like dairy, nuts, and wheat. Already stocked in more than 400 stores across Canada, James says the demand for allergen-free products is making it hard to keep up with the growing list of orders. She urgently needs a production supervisor so she can spend less time baking and more time on business. She also needs to hire another 2 workers as soon as possible and predicts she'll never even she predicts she'll need even more help in January. So there it is. So they are hiring, but are they making enough, right? That's the thing. Ghosting, the creepy HR trend. So this is coming from Australia. Despite ghosting being a new trend, 83% of employers have already been ghosted. See, same thing, same article, but it's based out of Australia there, AU. Right here, this is from the Irish Times. Ghosting has glided into the workplace. An abrupt and permanent silence from a candidate even after accepting a job is not unusual. There are many awful things that I would like to think I would never do at work. High on the list would be interviewing someone repeatedly for a job and then never getting back to them to know they have to let them to job and never getting back to let them know they haven't got it. I know a lot of people who have suffered this treatment, but I was astonished to learn last week that things have flipped. Companies hunting for workers are finding candidates who sail through interviews and background checks, then abruptly cut off contacts when an offer is made or vanish after accepting a job. This oafish behavior is driving companies crazy, according to an account LinkedIn published the other day that suggested the problem is surging in fields of software and finance and food service. So software, and finance, So people get better bonuses in finance, right? So they could... how come companies are dealing with millennials ghosting on their jobs? Low unemployment rates in certain sectors, texting culture can mean abrupt departures that create frustration for employers. Again, this is happening all over the world. This is happening everywhere. And ghosting is a big thing. And ghosting will continue to be a big thing because I think people have lost that drive, Back in the day, 20, 30 years ago, you got a good job in Canada. All you needed was a job, and that covered everything. A lot of people back in the day weren't out job hunting or looking for better jobs or better salaries or better this or better that. Well, I mean, the average salary, a better salary would come along. And back in the day, people were more loyal to their employers. They'd be like, I like this guy. I know his family. I went to barbecue at his house. I don't want to just leave him. I've been with him for a long time. People actually thought like that back in the day, believe it or not. And now it's more about money. It's more about what's in it for me. It's not about growing yourself in a position and promoting yourself and getting yourself out there and kind of building a future or building a future in a company, But for me, when I was young, it was really hard to find employment, right? It's a long story why, but it was a tough nut to crack to find employment. And I didn't find employment until I pretty much finished high school, and it was tough as nails, to keep yourself hired because they're always looking for better people. Now it's a huge shift now, and yeah, HR, they're going nuts right now. HR is losing, it's splitting hairs. Why aren't people showing up to work? Why aren't people doing this? What's wrong? Back in the day, you would get an employer call you and say, sorry, we don't need you, or great interview, but you're not the right fit for us. Now it's turning a complete 180. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Have you been in this situation where you expected a call from an employer and only to get the, sorry, you're not a good fit? Let me know. Comment below. And thank you so much for watching. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button.